Well, I was thinking I haven't tuned it, so I'm sorry.
I would never know anyway.
Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
All right. Well, welcome back to this episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast. Today, my guest is Brittany Walker. Brittany, thanks for making the time to make this happen. We are sitting outside in Pateros. Where are we? Tell the audience.
We are at Sweet River Bakery in Pateros. And this is like the gem, I think, of Pateros. I mean, there are many, of course, but I love this place.
Okay. So the reason we're here today is we tried to do this in our typical remote fashion, and well, technology just wasn't our friend. So, Brittany, why don't you give us a little bit of your backstory as to how you ended up sitting here today? So from birth to today in 3 minutes or no, just kidding. How'd you end up here in the Central Washington?
I was going to say how much time do we have. You said 3 minutes. Well, music is something it's one of those always been theirs for me. My mom plays the piano wonderfully, beautifully. And when I was growing up, she played in church every Sunday. And so I was watching her every week prepare and practice. And one of my favorite places was for a little while we had a grand piano in our house, and I loved to sit under there while she was practicing. She was my first piano teacher, and then I was in children's choirs and youth group band, and then middle school I did some musicals. I was part of a children's theater program, and that's when I started taking voice lessons because I wanted to maybe get a solo. If I could sing one line, I wanted to sing it well. Then high school, that's when everything kind of changed for me. I went to a school where there were and are a lot of fine arts and music programs, and I took every music class I could. There was a songwriting class, and I was one of 8 kids in that class. And it was like a club. It didn't even feel like a class. We were just writing songs and sharing them every week. And that was when I realized, this is what I love. I love this. So then I went to Taylor University for music composition.
Where's Taylor University?
It's in Indiana.
Okay.
So I'm not surprised that you wouldn't know where it is. It's a long ways away.
Where in Indiana?
Upland, Indiana.
So
It's over by Muncie.
Okay, there you go. Finally, thank you.
It's a little town. It's a nice school in a little town. Moved to Washington about 8 years ago. My dad got a job out here, and so I moved with my folks. And that's when it kind of struck me that, well, if I want to be a performer, I should probably start performing. Kind of common sense, perhaps. But that's when I started performing. And my first gig was I played at Der Hinterhof in Leavenworth, and it was a 3-hour gig, my first ever performance, and I knew about 7 songs. So when I got to about song 7, I was hoping that everybody was ready to leave because I needed to start over. But anyway, so since then I've been performing and a lot in Washington, and I travel a lot. Okay. I record in Nashville, and yeah.
All right. So
I don't think I told you where I moved from. I told you I moved here.
Right.
That's kind of like, that should have been the first thing I said. I grew up in West Chicago.
West Chicago.
So being out here is a lot different. I'm still not used to waking up and seeing mountains in every direction.
Right. Yeah, that's a little bit of a change, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's go back to your first songwriting class. Now, let's be honest. How were those first songs?
They were great, Scott. No, I'm just kidding. They were, it would be fun to go back and look at those again, because I'm sure they would be very different.
So how old are you at that time?
At that time, 16, 17. Okay.
So there's
I was a junior.
There's a guy that's been on the show, and he's become a friend of mine since. And he claims that he wrote a song when he was 10. And he's still performing it now.
Really?
He's changed it through the years. So it's interesting.
That's pretty impressive.
I mean, do you play any of those original classroom written songs?
There is one. Okay, so I wrote a song called "She Almost Did."
Okay.
In that class, and I did record it, and I put it on one of my albums.
Okay.
And but for the most part, the answer is no. My family, they're the only ones who know like those really early songs, and every now and then they'll tell me that, oh, you got to play this one. And my response is always, well, I feel like I got to rewrite some of that before I do.
It didn't age well.
Yeah.
All right. So your first show, you had 7 songs?
Probably 7 or 8 songs,
okay.
yeah. I didn't really know what I was getting into.
They didn't tell you it was a 3-hour performance?
They did, but I don't know what I was thinking.
Did you like doing a guitar solo in the middle of it? Or
there were lots of long introductions and outros. No, that was fun. I'm glad they had me anyway.
What? Let's go to that show then. Those first 7 or 8. Do you play any of them still?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. It's always fun just to talk to people when they're first getting started and how things change.
They do.
So
yeah, a lot of things change.
So you went to college. You ended up out here, and out here at this moment in time is Pateros, where we're sitting under a tin roof and it's a little bit of rain and it's cold. And I'm like, I thought I moved to Central Washington for the sun and the heat, and it's escaping us this year so far. When I saw you play at Pybus Market in Wenatchee. We weren't there all that long. No, we came in probably the middle of your set, I think. I was very impressed.
Oh, thanks.
And we had communicated kind of before that, and you were always really busy. So as a solo performer, has it been easy for you to find venues to play at now that we're post-pandemic?
Well, first of all, it's really nice to be back performing. Pretty rough couple of years for everybody. But around here, yes, it's been, there's so many beautiful wineries and restaurants, places like Sweet River Bakery, where they love to have live music every week. And so yeah, I would say very fortunate in finding places. So
when you play here, for those of us that no one's watching this, so you're going to have to paint a picture. That stage over there, is that the stage that you play on?
Yep.
The one with the blue tarp?
Yes. Well, the blue tarp is usually not there. Music hasn't started yet, I don't think, at the bakery yet.
So they have this little covered stage. You might get 4 people up on there, but you'd be fine.
Small groups. Yeah.
Small groups. And this is a nice little backyard-ish venue. And you can really hear the rain coming through. This is just
atmosphere.
Yes. So in an effort to drown out the rain, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to play something.
Okay.
So why don't you give us a little backstory about, because since I just threw you under the bus, she happens to have a guitar in her lap, but she, anyway.
I thought something like this might happen. Sure. So since it's raining, I think I'll play a sunny California song.
Okay.
Last November, I went to Northern California and saw the Redwood Forest for the first time. I've always wanted to go. So beautiful. And while in the area, I had a chance to go a little bit further south to, I think is it Point Reyes, where went on a 14-mile hike, which is pretty long for me. I don't usually go on something like that. But at the end of the hike is a beautiful waterfall that it falls directly into the ocean. And it's called Alamir Falls. And going there, I was very excited how beautiful it is because I had already written Alamir Falls into a song before I'd been there. So I was glad to find that it was exactly what I hoped it would be. This is Golden Hour. I can tell when you're smiling on the phone. You said the lighthouse, meet me at daybreak. If you were a time of year, I'd call you September when the trees change. So this morning, We are somewhere on the coast and I surrender to this runaway train. If you were a time of day, I'd know you forever at sunrise. Is that strange? When everything is red and golden, wearing my best dress, I'm holding my breath in a field of 1,000 sunflowers. Oh, honey, you are golden, 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 golden hour. I don't mind where the day may go from here if we find Alamere Falls by sunset. If you were a time of year, I'd call you September when the trees change. This yellow raincoat has been right around me, dear, since the day we met, and I haven't worn it yet. If you were a time of day, I'd know you forever at sundown. When everything is red and golden, wearing my best dress, I'm holding my breath in a field of 1,000 sunflowers. Oh, honey, you are golden, golden, golden. You are golden hour. Well, maybe every fool believes it, and maybe I'm a fool for you. Oh, maybe every fool believes, but I know it. You are golden, golden, when everything is red and gold. Wearing my best dress, I'm frozen with you in a field of 1,000 sunflowers. Oh, honey, you are golden, golden, golden. You are golden hour, golden, golden. You are golden hour, golden, golden, golden hour, golden, golden. You are golden.
Very nice. And I'm laughing because the rain is really coming down. And I'm getting wet.
I was thinking, of course, as soon as I start playing a song, that's when it starts pouring.
All right, folks.
That's funny.
So let's talk about songwriting and where do you get your inspiration? What inspires you? How do you like craft a song?
Inspiration can come from anywhere.
Sitting in
the rain. You never know. This might be a song.
Oh boy.
I love true stories. Not every song is based on, well, everything has truth to it, but I love when someone will tell me a story, and especially when they don't know what I do, and then I can turn it into a song. For example, a few years ago now, I was driving from Chicago out here to visit my brother's family for the first time, never been out here. My parents and I stopped at Mount Rushmore. And while we were there, we saw a man who had a dog with him, which is a little unusual. You don't see people walking around with their dogs at Mount Rushmore. But the dog had a vest that said, "Patriot Assistance Dog, ask my owner about me." So we crossed paths a couple times. And I think maybe the third time we finally stopped him and said, we're sorry to bother you, but your dog is telling us to ask about her. And come to find out, his name was Brad and his dog was Roxy. And he talked to us for maybe about 10 minutes, just telling us some of his experiences overseas and coming home, and how Roxy is able to help him just every day. And so while we were leaving, I told my mom and dad that, someday you might hear a song about Brad and Roxy, and I did write a song about them. So I love those kinds of stories. Sometimes my family will give me ideas like, oh, you should write about this, friends. And every now and then my sister, she's an author, she's a writer, she'll just send me song lyrics like, here you go. And that's great. So ideas and inspiration and songs, they can come from everywhere.
So far you've disclosed that your mom's a piano player. Mm-hmm. Your sister's an artist or author. Mm-hmm. What's your brother do?
My brother, he's a great videographer, photographer. And my other brother, he's in digital design, and so a lot of different arts. So
you got everyone seems like they're in the arts in some capacity. Mm-hmm. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Growing up, were you encouraged for that? Were you all encouraged to be artistic and follow that path?
I would say so, and also just encouraged to, if you're interested in something, see where it leads, and pursue, go after it. Okay.
So after college, had you recorded anything during college? When did you first start recording?
First started recording in 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you do that in Nashville, or did you?
That was in Nashville.
So how did you end up? For those of us that are in the music business, Nashville's got this mystique about it.
Sorry about that.
That it's got this mystique that it's maybe difficult to record there, things like that. But so how did you end up? Why did you go to Nashville, and how did that process happen?
Thinking about recording, my dad actually initially, he was thinking about building a recording studio, and because he's a builder.
Okay.
And the more he looked into it, realized how expensive that was going to be. And so we started contacting studios in Chicago, because that's close to where I grew up. And great studios, but I'm a folk kind of country, well, not country, but folk Americana artist, and the studios we were talking to, that wasn't really their style. So then my dad, he called up Hilltop Recording Studios to get an email address. You're laughing at the rain.
He's all blowing on one side of me.
There's no escaping it.
No, there is none.
He called up Hilltop Recording Studios and just to ask for an email address to get some information. And the owner actually answered the phone, and they got in a conversation. And long story short, that's where we ended up going the first time, in Nashville. And I was so nervous. I didn't know what to expect, and I brought my guitar with me. I was all practiced and got to the studio. And as soon as I met John, the owner and engineer now, that was when everything, it was like, oh, this is going to be fun, because he's just so, everybody down there, all the musicians, John, they're all just so great. And so he saw my guitar, and he pointed at it, and he kind of said, oh, you can just leave that right there. And he led us downstairs to the studio, and that's where I met 8 musicians that I didn't know were going to be there. I thought it was just going to be me. So it was a big surprise. And after about 60 seconds, I was really glad that I had left my guitar upstairs, because I didn't want them to know that I could play. But so since then, I guess 10 years, I've made some really great friends, and that's where I do all my recording.
Okay. Another person that's been on the show before recorded his first solo album at Abbey Road.
Oh, wow.
Right. And he was describing how when you go there, you can basically go, hey, I'd like to use Ringo's drum kit, or can I bring up the piano from, yesterday? And you can be literally playing these instruments that had all these iconic classical hits. They're not classical in the sense, but, they are classical.
Parts of history.
Yeah.
That's really
and so
cool.
Was this studio, were you able to go and say, hey, I'd like to try that, Martin guitar that's just laying there in the corner?
Well, I would say that after 10 years, I do feel a lot more in control. Like the first day, I felt like I was just kind of along for the ride with my own songs, just kind of, what's the process? How does this work? And now I feel more like, I guess, a leader in the studio. I wouldn't say that I haven't gotten to the point where I'm comfortable saying, oh, can I play that? But maybe I'll get there.
So that first recording session where they had, studio musicians waiting for you and you had no clue. Mm-hmm. How was that for you? How was that day?
Oh, it was incredible. It was incredible because I had created demos and sent those down, and that's what the musicians listen to beforehand, and so that way they know what they're going to be playing, and they follow these chord sheets that they put together, and so up until that day, it had just been me, listening to my recordings. It's just me and my guitar, and so then they listen to the song, listen to the demo. I'm like, all right, let's give it a try, and so we all go into our different booths, and the drummer does the count off. And all of a sudden they're playing a song I've never heard before, but it's mine. Like it's, and my mom, not my mom, my dad, he was asking me afterwards, how did you know when to come in? Like, it didn't sound like your song at the first. How did you know? And I said, well, I'm really good at counting. But it's just so cool cool isn't even a good enough word. Beautiful how they can take something and create something entirely new while still sticking and staying true to what you give them. It's amazing.
Are you happy with that first recording result?
I am. Yeah. Okay. I would say it's a lot different than my most recent recordings. Mm-hmm. But yes, what's funny is the very first song I recorded is called Not Afraid. Mm-hmm. And it kind of felt like that's the song I needed that day because I was pretty afraid. Oh. It felt like the first test or a first test of whether or not this is something I really want to do, and it is.
And so how long were you in the studio the first time? First time.
So every recording day is split up into 3 recording sessions. Mm-hmm. In the morning, you record the instruments. In the afternoon, I do my vocals. And then at night, either I have more vocals or we bring in backup singers. Okay. So that first day, we recorded 3 songs. I guess 3, 6, 9 hours. Okay. Yeah.
And so the entirety of that entire time that you were in Nashville, that first time, how many days did it take you to?
First, probably. That's a great question. It's 10 years ago. I don't know if I remember. Definitely, probably 4 or 5.
4 or 5 days. So a week. Let's just say a week.
Sure.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. There was a lot of that first trip. There was a lot more kind of sightseeing and taking in Nashville too. Okay. Now, when I go to record, it's more. I'm trying to record 6 or 7 songs, and so there definitely is a week in those cases, and unless of going downtown and.
Have you ever played in Nashville?
I have. Yeah, okay. I have played a couple of times. Okay. I got to play the Bluebird Cafe. Oh, it's pretty.
That's cool.
Kind of a legendary place in Nashville. So that was fun.
All right. Well, we got the first album done. And how many have you recorded now? How many have you released?
I have released 5. Yeah, my 5th just came out in December.
And that was a Christmas album?
Yep.
Okay. So let's jump to that one.
Okay.
How long did that take you to go through? And did you do that in Nashville?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. All of my recording so far has been there. That probably 3, I think it was like 3 different trips through a year. Okay. Maybe.
So you're getting those frequent flyer miles.
Yeah. Well, we actually, so I'm very fortunate that my parents, they like to be along with me on this dream and this ride. And so we've driven a lot. Oh, okay. We've driven back and forth. Okay. Yeah. It's a very long drive. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
We live in a very beautiful country.
Okay. So that took you 3 sessions.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. But what are you working on now?
I have begun work on my next album, which I'm very near the beginning of the process, so I'm not sure what it's going to look like yet, but I do have a few songs recorded already. Okay. Now,
recorded in Nashville, or recorded?
Yes.
Okay.
Recorded in Nashville.
Not sitting in your...
Real recording, not me on GarageBand, yeah.
Okay. All right, well, let's ask that question. You in GarageBand. Mm-hmm. Are you closer now to what it sounds like when you go to the studio versus that first time where you're like, this didn't sound like me. This was
Yeah.
not what I expected. So now, after years of practice, 10 years, does what you're putting down in GarageBand sound closer to that first day at the studio?
I like to think so. at least vocally, I think yes.
Okay.
When I'm recording, one of my favorite musicians is Joel Key, and he's a studio musician in Nashville, and he plays the guitar, he plays the banjo and the mandolin. He probably plays anything with strings.
Okay.
And that part of the recording, no, I'm not up there with Joel Key with my guitar. I'm still working on it, but so yes and no, I guess is the answer.
Well, let's talk about this early on in the process, and I'm putting you on the spot. Okay. When's this album going to be done? I know it's an almost impossible question, but like, I'm just trying to gauge what's the timeline look like typically for you? Every 2 years?
I will release it sometime in the next 10 years. No, I'm just kidding. I'm hoping that it will be out before the end of this year.
Okay. And it's 2022.
Yes, 2022, yeah.
Now, when you're releasing these, now I'm old, so albums still mean round platters.
Right.
Are you actually putting them out on vinyl? Are you doing them on CDs? You streaming them? How are you distributing your music?
I on CDs and streaming.
Okay.
And vinyl records, that is a goal of mine, just because I think they're so cool.
Yeah.
I still call them albums.
Oh,
I call CDs albums too.
I know, but they're not. They're not.
in the sense of being a collection, it is.
Yeah.
But I understand. People always ask me, because I'll mention my albums, and they'll say, "You call them albums?" And anyway, so that's a conversation I've had.
All right. And you're self-published.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How's that? Let's talk business for a second. Not real specific numbers, but let's talk the business of being an independent artist. A lot more platforms available to you today than 10 years ago.
That is true.
So, yes or no? Are you a fan of streaming services?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
Do you have which one do you like? Is there one that you kind of go, oh, I really like? I really like
Spotify.
Okay. Now,
and I also really like Pandora.
Okay.
I think if you're trying to discover somebody new, Pandora's great.
Okay.
Because you don't know what you're going to hear. It could be what you're looking for, but it could be something you've never heard of before. So I think that's really cool.
Okay. Why do you like Spotify then?
Spotify, well, I don't know if I have the best reason in the world, but they were the first platform to take my music.
Okay. And
that was a really big deal for me, because there were many years where it's like, nobody wants to stream my albums. I like that you can listen to exactly what you want to. Now that's true of like Apple Music and Amazon Music, too. So I guess that's not a good reason.
Well, I use Spotify more than I use any of the other platforms. So there's just something about it that just seems simple. Mm-hmm. It just seems simple. Do you find that I'll probably interchange the word streaming and Spotify throughout the rest of this conversation, but do you find that streaming is a good way for you to be introduced to people that are actually going to come and see your music live?
That's a great question. I don't know. because Spotify, well, I don't believe it is aimed at a specific location. It's pretty. So I don't know. Unless somebody sees on my website or on a social media a link and clicks on it there, and then they're like, "Oh yeah," but no, I don't know.
Okay. Has it resulted in CD sales?
Not that I know of.
Not that you know. Okay. No, these are all fine. It's just.
No, you're making me think. My hesitation is just, have they?
Okay.
I think Spotify is a great introduction to the people who listen on Spotify.
Well, I mean, I found some great music because of the what's it called? Well, first off, the release radar, and then what's the thing that comes out every Monday? You get a new kind of custom playlist for you on every Monday.
Oh yeah.
And I always listen to that. And like this week's is we're recording this on a Monday. I've already listened to it all, and a third of it was amazing, and I had not heard before. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And a lot of it's old stuff, like 60s and 70s old stuff.
Some of the best stuff.
Yeah, but it's like, oh, how come I hadn't heard that before? Oh, interesting. So I think that these streaming channels are amazing for independent artists. Mm-hmm. How about social media? Are you a fan? You should see the look on her face, folks.
I'm not talented with social media. I have social media platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I can go months without posting anything, and people will be asking me like, "Where are you? What are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not the greatest at keeping it going.
Okay. You could only use one channel. What would it be? What social media channel would
For
it
me, Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of for the same reason that you said about Spotify, that it's simple, and there aren't like a million different things you can do on it. It's just
kind of
posts and videos. And
right. Have you tried any like playing live? Have you gone live like on any of these channels?
I have actually. I've done that a couple of times. I've done it too when I'm performing somewhere. Set up a camera, and so people who are out of state or can't make it, they can watch the show. That's one of those things that really relies on your internet speed, though. So if you don't have that, then nobody's going to enjoy it.
No.
Exactly. Yeah. What did she say?
I guess I'm referencing other guests a lot right now today. But
That's okay.
There was another guest I've had on, and he plays live every day.
Wow.
And he has an amazing setup. He's got access to a recording studio in Seattle that he can use the grand piano. He's a piano player, and so he sets up a very simple, like, with his phone, just sits there and he plays. And I've watched some of the live streams, and he's had over 200 people watching at one time. I mean, it's staggering. He's he's done it like every day for like 400 days.
Wow.
And he plays for like 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he's just
that's really amazing.
It's pretty cool. It's
is.
Like, it can work. It can really work if you want to play for 2 or 3 hours at a time. Yeah. And you'd have to know more than
kind of let everybody in on your rehearsal almost every day.
Yeah,
that's pretty neat.
Or you could just play the same 7 songs over and over.
Yeah, that works sometimes.
I just always find it interesting talking to musicians that are, this is your craft, this is what you do. And this may sound awful at first, but I enjoy hearing about the struggles. Not because I'm mean.
Ouch.
But not because I'm mean, but because it's like, because the perseverance, the problem solving, the, like the pandemic, this, in this guy's case, he started streaming because of the pandemic. Okay. So it was born out of the inability to be able to perform live. So he came up with this other solution. A lot of people went into the studio, i.e. GarageBand, and put a lot of stuff out. And it's been interesting listening to people's journey through the strange times that we've hopefully are past. Yours sounds more, dare I say, traditional. Albums, even though they're CDs, albums,
yes,
and live performances, which I think is great. So let's talk about some places that you've played. Typically in the show, we only like to include Washington, but I'm going to give you an out if there is. You can take an out if you'd like. Where are some of the cool places you played in Washington? Or I'll let you. You said the Bluebird Cafe. I mean, you can add that to the list. That's like pretty cool.
I have played in wonderful, wonderful places in Washington. Some of my favorites. The first one that comes to mind. I played there twice. Is the Snowy Owl Theater in Leavenworth.
Okay.
You ever been there?
I have not.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's in It's like out in the woods, and it's just a beautiful theater. You should go sometime.
Okay, that sounds cool.
Where else? I've played at the Merc Playhouse in Twisp, the Ruby Theater in Chelan, movie theater. I love that theater. So many wineries. Wineries just in general are gorgeous places,
Right.
it seems like. Then outside of Washington, I would say, a few years ago, I had a chance to open for Three Dog Night in New York City. And at the time, when I got the opportunity, I didn't know who they were. And so I was talking to my mom and dad, asking them if they thought this was something I should do. And they started singing songs I had never heard before. So the answer was yes. And we went.
Let me stop you.
Sure.
I want to hear more about this Three Dog Night thing. So how did you, if you never heard of the band,
Yeah.
how did you get on their radar to open, and not here in Washington, but in New York?
In New York.
Yeah. How did all this come about?
It's a great question. So one of the things that I do a lot of is knocking on doors.
Okay.
Send a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls. And one of the places that I contacted was the City Winery in New York City. And
Okay.
there's City Winery in Chicago, City Winery, I think, in Atlanta. And there's quite a few of them.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to probably all of them. And City Winery in New York responded and said, that sounds great. We'd love to have you. Three Dog Night. They're going to be here in August, and they're looking for some support. Like they need any support.
Well, an opening act, so they don't have to play all night.
act.
They don't have to play 3 hours this way.
Right, exactly. And would that work for you? And so it was very much so a, wow, where'd that come from type of thing.
But you made that happen by being proactive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to, most of my friends that are musicians aren't making a lot of money. The drive from Central Washington to New York is a long ways to go for an opening gig.
You know what? For that one, we flew.
Okay, so
We flew for that
even
one.
worse, even more expensive.
Maybe so.
Did you book any other gigs around that?
I looked for more gigs, but I didn't find any for that trip.
Okay.
And so for that one, it was just a one show
Okay.
deal.
And how'd that go?
It was so fun. It was so much fun. It was a sold out show, and I never played in New York. Still, I guess I haven't been back. So that's the only time I played in New York.
Okay.
And getting ready for that show, figuring out what to play for my 45 minutes, I really wanted to play this one song, and I was told my family, my brother, and they were telling me, you might not want to play that one in New York, but there are times when I can get a little stubborn, and I decided I was going to play it anyway. And I sang Please Come to Boston in New York City, and everybody booed me, and then they laughed, and they were good sports after that. Such a fun crowd. And somebody even yelled up, like, after one of my songs, saying, and who says we're not friendly in New York? And I didn't know this at the time. Afterwards, my brother, who he flew out to come too, he said that might be the bravest thing I've ever seen. And I was like, really? Why? Well, I didn't know, but Boston and New York, they were like playing, I think it was playoffs or something. And they were both the baseball. They were playing, and that night, I didn't explain that very well, but you know what I mean.
So the Yankees were playing the Red Sox in the playoffs, and
Yes,
you
thank
played
you.
Please Come to Boston in New York City.
Yeah.
You don't know me very well, but that was either very brave or very dumb. I'll let you pick.
Well, I didn't know. I didn't know that was going on.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But yes, that was really fun. Really fun.
So how were the guys in Three Dog Night?
Great.
Okay.
So great. Yeah.
Did you learn anything by watching them? These guys have been playing for decades.
Decades, yeah.
Did they just come out?
They looked like they've been doing it for decades. It's just very relaxed and totally, no ruffles or anything. And my favorite moment was their last song they sang was Prayers for the Children, and it's all a cappella. And so they took, a cappella means no instruments, and
Right.
so you could just hear them, and they sounded great.
Okay.
So that was really fun.
And they didn't reference Boston at all, did they?
No, they didn't. They were a little smarter than I.
Well, that's okay. So you actually, all kidding aside, that's actually really impressive that you knock on doors, make calls, emails on your own, because you almost have to.
Mm-hmm. Indie musician, you have to have
Wear all the hats.
Control of all the different facets.
Herd all the cats, wear all the hats. Where would you like to play in Washington State that you haven't played?
It's a great question. There are a lot of great places. I would love to, just in general, I would love to play more on the Seattle side. I've played over there a couple of times. I've played, another favorite place, the Ballard Homestead in Ballard. It's a very charming space.
Okay.
So that's not a specific place, but Seattle over there. Just recently, I went to a concert in Spokane. I got to see Mercy Me play, and they had Wren Collective with them. They're from Ireland, which, truth be told, Wren Collective is why I wanted to go to the show, even though they were like the opening act. And they played at the Spokane Arena. Is that right?
The
big arena. And I love smaller spaces. Like I love the places where I get to play because they are usually smaller spaces with listening audiences. Mm-hmm. But when I went to that show, I was thinking, that looks fun. That would be a fun thing to be a part of. So,
have you performed in Spokane?
I have a few times. Yep.
Where have you performed in Spokane?
I performed at the Bartlett, and I've been a part of the Spokane Fall Folk Festival a few times. And this summer, I'm going to play at a farmer's market. Okay. I love farmer's markets. Those are they're so different to play. And so that'll be fun.
Okay. Yeah, Spokane's got some great venues. It really does. And Seattle does as well. Mm-hmm. So you didn't say, well, you might not have said the Triple Door, because are you aware of the Triple Door in Seattle?
I am aware, yes. Now that you mention it. Yes, I like to play there. That's one that it's so funny to me is I ask this question to musicians and I think when I started talking to musicians, I expected them, well, where would you like to play in Washington? And I really expected everybody to say the Gorge. Oh yeah, that too. No, but I really expected I'd love to play there too. I know, but I really expected everybody to say the Gorge. Mm. And pretty much everybody does just what you do when I said, oh, the Gorge. And I'm like, oh yeah. It comes back to mind, yes. But the Triple Door comes up a lot. So now let me ask you part two of this question. Part two is, where do you like to see music being performed at in Washington? Ooh. Because it's different for you, isn't it, to be on the stage versus being in the audience? It is. It is different. So like one of the reasons people love the Triple Door to play at is great sound, it's a very comfortable venue. Green room's nice. This is what, at least this is what I'm being told, because they wouldn't allow me on stage. And oftentimes the very same people that say, I want to play the Triple Door, say, I want to see music at the Triple Door, because it's such a great place to see music performed. So I always like to ask, where do you like to see music performed? That is a great question, because I don't usually get to see other performers often unless we're in the same day or the same gig or a few, maybe 2 or 3, well, I don't know how many years ago now, I was opening for a band in Seattle called Kalimba. Okay. And a Spirit of Earth, Wind, and Fire, tribute or a cover band. Right. And we played at the Federal Way Performing Arts Center and the historic Everett Theater. And so those were really fun, because after I was done, I did get to go into the audience and watch the rest of the show. And the Federal Way Performing Arts Center, am I getting that right? Is that what it's called? For the sake of the show, yes. Yes. Okay. I'm thinking, as I'm saying it, I'm thinking that's not right. No, I do think that's what it is. Okay. That is a fantastic theater. And let's see, where else have I seen? All right, I'm going to stop you because I want to know, your music doesn't line up with, categorically, it doesn't line up with an Earth, Wind, and Fire tribute band.
Is this another one of those knocked on the doors, or how did you end up opening for?
For some reason, this happens where I do end up opening for bands that we're not the same genre. We're just, but no. So I have a friend who's in that band. He plays the saxophone, and Chris Sigmund, and he invited me to come open for them. Just just a friend.
You have to acknowledge your music doesn't sound like Earth, Wind and Fire.
No.
Earth, Wind and Fire doesn't sound like you.
Maybe they wanted the contrast. I don't know.
but all right. I'm going to see an Earth, Wind and Fire tribute band. I'm expecting to listen to Earth, Wind and Fire songs, and you're on stage.
It's possible everyone wondered if they were in the right theater.
Yeah, I mean,
it's possible
in that scenario. But how were those audiences?
They were great.
Okay,
yeah.
I mean,
that's what you're going to hear every time you ask me about an audience. They were great because it's true.
Oh, come on now.
Yeah,
let's talk.
No, it's
let's
true.
talk dirt about the audiences. Come on.
No, I can honestly say, other than there have been a few places where I am more background music, and those aren't necessarily as much fun to play, but I can honestly say I've never had a bad audience.
Okay. Well, when we saw you, not to put you on the spot, but when we saw you at Pybus,
yes,
that seems kind of, and I like Pybus a lot, don't get me wrong, I do. It just, and you had nothing to do with this, where you were located.
Yes.
Just seemed really weird. It just didn't seem conducive to enjoying music. Yeah. It just
Pybus Market, so we'll use that as an example. There are certain places where it's a different environment. So Pybus Market, something that's fun about it is, so there were like a few chairs in front, right? And there were people sitting there listening. But there are also people like at the far end of the building who later on will come over and say, "Oh, I liked that specific song about your time on the road," and so you don't know who's listening in those situations. It's interesting. It's odd.
I mean to explain my really not like didn't mean like they liked your music really, but like they could hear you.
I didn't take it that way.
Good, because I was like, but like because given Pybus is a long, narrow, rectangular building, and so if I didn't think the sound would go all the way down to the end. Okay, that's actually good to hear.
Yeah.
Because where we were sitting, we were kind of behind your amplification, and so it was a little harder to hear you.
Sure.
And we were fairly close, but just
because of it is a strange setup.
Right.
I really love. I'm going to play in the outdoor market this summer, and I love that. Just because there aren't. Well, you're outside, so the sound can go.
Right.
There's nothing stopping it.
Have you ever played McGlynn's in Wenatchee?
No, I haven't.
You should check that out.
The Glens.
McGlynn's.
Okay.
Yeah. They've got a nice little. Just really, you would fit in perfect because it's a very small little place outside. Yeah, it's a nice little restaurant, and
I will have to
check them out.
Check them out.
There, if you get one thing out of this conversation, is there's a lead.
Well, thank you.
Here to help. Well, I'm going to ask you to play another song.
Okay.
Yeah. And why don't you introduce that?
Okay.
She had no idea I was going to make her do this again.
I didn't know you were going to ask me for another song.
I know. She's going to replay the first song, folks.
Here we go again. Well, could you hear it the first time with the rain?
Yes. Now we'll play it without rain. No percussion.
A few years back, I was playing at the Kerrville Folk Festival in Texas. It's by San Antonio. And I'd never been to Texas, and so I was very excited to go. Since then, I've been told that I haven't been to Texas because I was only there for I was there for less than a day. You can't see a lot of Texas in not even a day. But I had to get out of there fast. That sounds funny. I had to leave soon because I had to play in Seattle like the next day. And
you didn't mention Boston, did you?
I didn't mention Boston. I've kind of learned not to mention Boston anymore, unless I'm just going to sing the song. But San Antonio, that's where this song began. This is Your Time on the Road. My fingers have gotten cold sitting out here, so I'm going to start that again.
That's an interesting way to start a song. My fingers have gotten cold.
My fingers are cold. Well, I fumbled. Okay, here we go. Flew into San Antonio for a day and a really great show. Need to be in Seattle by tomorrow. I have friends I don't know yet waiting for me. Oh, Chicago, it's good to be back where I have a little history. Missed a call while on stage in New York City, but tonight, before we sleep, there's your voice on the phone. Wherever you go, just know you can come back home. Don't stay far away. I long to hear the tales of your time on the road. Sing the songs of the road. And if you don't belong out there, turn around and come home. Sing good morning to Raleigh now, then to the coast for a most lovely town. I wrote this down, bound for Nashville and the home crowd. Even now, lost or found, there's your voice on the phone. Wherever you go, just know you can come back home. Don't stay far away. I long to hear the tales of your time on the road. Sing the songs of the road. And if you don't belong out there, turn around and come home. And no matter how long you've been gone, wherever you go, just know you can come back home. Don't stay far away. I long to hear the tales of your time on the road. Sing the songs of the road. And if you've been too long out there, turn around and come home.
Very nice.
Thank you.
I don't know if anyone else heard that car go by right at the end. So one thing I've noticed is you fly to New York for a show, you go to Texas for a show. Mm-hmm. I think maybe good natured here. You need to learn how to book out a tour so that you can.
I know that's true.
Not do these like 1,500, 2,000 mile shows.
Yeah, I like to go really far from home for a very short amount of time.
Yeah,
Well, I'm working on that. I'm actually in July. I'll be spending a week in Wisconsin. So I'm working in the
Ooh.
right direction, spending a little more than just a day.
Okay. So how did you end up booking Wisconsin for a week?
So my sister lives in Wisconsin, so it's a great reason to look around in that area.
Right.
And just found some really great places it's how a tour is supposed to work.
Right.
Finding all these places with good amount of time in between. And so that'll be really fun.
Oh, that's awesome. So what's next for you? You're playing a bunch of shows this summer. I mean, that's kind of the constant. You're performing.
Yep.
You've got an album that you're working on. What's next?
That's a good question. That's a big question, actually. Performing and playing in more places, meeting new people, hearing new stories, writing new songs. The next album is the big project.
Do you
for
have a
this
working
year.
title?
I don't. Well, actually, I do. I have a few, and that's the problem. I can't tell you one.
Okay.
Because then it might not be that.
Okay. Well, that's why we preface it by saying working.
Album 6.
Album 6.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the working title.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Album 6. Look for album 6 coming soon to Spotify. When you're not writing music and performing music, what do you like to do?
Anything that has to do with being with my family. And my sister lives in Wisconsin. One of my brothers lives in Indiana. And so that's another reason to travel, is to get over there. And I do like just traveling in general and seeing new places. I like to read.
Okay. What do you like to read?
All kinds of things, I guess. I didn't think you were going to ask me that. I thought it was just going to be like, I like to read.
What genre do you like?
I like fantasy. Right now I'm reading Emma by Jane Austen, which is not fantasy.
No.
So I like the classics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. Coffee?
No, unfortunately,
And we're in a coffee shop, folks.
Yeah. Well,
Can you hear the disappointment in my voice?
I was thinking I might have to get a hot chocolate.
A hot
sure.
chocolate. All right. Well, let's give you some slack on that.
Thank you.
So you like to travel, so let's confine this question to Washington State. Where do you want to go? What haven't you seen here that you want to go check out?
I would love to go see the beaches on the west side, up on the peninsula.
Okay.
Just like
You've never been
anywhere.
up there?
I have, but it's the thing. I've traveled up there for shows.
Okay.
I don't really have time to look around or go anywhere.
You need a tour manager. I'm just saying. I mean, you got these 2,000-mile things, and now you don't have time to look at beaches.
Yeah,
Come
this
on.
is the struggle of being an indie artist. It's trying to learn how to do all those things. No, I'm kidding. But you're right. You're right.
That's you've missed. You will not be disappointed. Okay. Well, why don't we wrap this up by you telling everyone where they can find you online, even though you just to rub it in, you've acknowledged that you're not great at social media, but where can people
I'm trying to be better.
Where can people find out more about you? Maybe find out where you're playing in Washington State so they can come out
Sure.
and hear what you've got to say.
Well, I'm hoping to play in Washington State a lot this summer. Have some dates already up. And you can find everything on my website, which is bjeanmusic.com.
Okay.
BJEAN music. And yeah, I'd love to see anybody who wants to come and listen to some music, make some new friends. So.
All right. Last question.
Okay.
What didn't I ask you that I should have?
I don't know.
All right.
I was trying to think of something clever and nothing came to me.
Perfect. That's a clever answer in itself.
I do have a question for you,
Okay.
actually. Having this podcast outside, is this something that, do you normally have conversations like this outside with the birds and the rain? And
So at the time that we're recording this, I have probably recorded 200 episodes.
Wow.
haven't published them all yet. So we're probably in about the 170 range.
That's amazing.
And I would say out of those approximately 200, maybe 15 have been recorded in person. We started this during COVID, so it wasn't possible.
Mm-hmm.
I've had terrible success in person. I've had 3 really great conversations not get recorded. And I'm hoping that this isn't going to be 4th. So my preference is I prefer to do them remotely only because I'm more confident in the tech.
Mm.
And I prefer to do them remotely because it doesn't rain in my office.
That's good. I'm glad it doesn't rain in your
Because
office.
electronics, not the best. But actually, I do enjoy meeting people.
Mm.
And so it's kind of fun to be able to sit down and talk like we're doing this today. But the audio quality just is almost always better when it's remote.
Mm.
Just because these microphones that we're talking on are going to... My producer is going to have his work cut out for him to try to turn off some of the background noise.
Mm.
He won't be able to turn it all off. And that's okay because that's ambiance. I think I'd like to almost go 50-50 though, to be honest with you. To answer your question, I'd like to do more of this and less of this in-studio stuff. And as the weather improves, it's easier to do.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I got to tell you, I really appreciate what you're doing with your podcast and highlighting and supporting and encouraging artists and musicians and businesses and your neighbors.
Don't forget making fun too, because we do poke fun at people.
Well, I noticed that a little bit, but
yeah, we try to make it enjoyable and lighthearted for everybody. Mm. So, Bill, thank you for making this happen and scheduling this. And I look forward to seeing you play this summer.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.